Alongside Craig Mish, and we are T-minus, 59 minutes or so as Major League Baseball teams are feverishly working the phones, looking to make deals ahead of the deadline. 6 o'clock Eastern time. A lot of teams, question marks that we had. Who would be buyers? Who would be sellers? Well, we have a much better idea on who exactly those two groups of people are at this particular point. But obviously, Greg, it's been a very interesting last 24, 48 hours. Tariq Skubal still the big name who will be wearing what everyone feared would be a Dodgers uniform. Well, that happened on Saturday night. But I think it's very interesting what we've seen over the last 24 hours. And some things you nailed. The Dustin May, Jojo Romero, the Brewers. And listen, kudos to the Cardinals for getting a couple of rentals that they knew would be rentals, and being able to turn those for any sort of prospects has been good. So while, yes, the rich got richer here, Greg, there are absolutely some teams heading into hopefully a postseason berth that got some reinforcements that may not overtake Skubal as the lead story, but a lot of teams got a little bit better here over the last 24 hours.
Yeah, it's good to be with you here, Joe. I think it's an interesting deadline, and I would say that a lot happens in the final hour, so we still have an hour to go here. I wouldn't discount the Yankees getting more involved. The Diamondbacks have been quiet. So there's still some teams, I think, that are going to do some things. But I think that outside of the Skubal trade, I think that we certainly have to say that the biggest trade of the day was Adley Rutschman going from Baltimore to Boston. I think that was one that I think took some people by surprise. Because as Joe, you pointed out before we got on the air, it's in the same division, and it's almost as if Baltimore was trying to chase down Boston potentially for a wild card spot, and now they've helped the Boston Red Sox. I don't think there's any question about that. There's no other way to look at it when you end up doing that. So Rutschman immediately becomes the starting catcher for the Red Sox for this year and then for next year, and then he becomes a free agent. But we're not going to play prospect geniuses here. But the reality is that Baltimore is basically invaded and taken over the Red Sox farm system, Joe. Like, they've taken over a lot of their first round picks, a lot of their highly touted prospects, which is a little surprising to see because, again, it's only a player with control for this year and control for next year as well. So what does it mean? It means, Joe, that the Red Sox are clearly feeling pressure. The front office is feeling pressure. They made this run out of the doldrums back into a potential playoff spot. They're playing the best baseball of anybody in baseball right now. And they are the one team, I would say today, Joe, that is all in. The Red Sox are all in now. That's it. There's no turning back. If they don't make the playoffs or they lose in the first round, they have just unloaded everything to get to the playoffs this year. So that was a little surprising. I would say, it was interesting that you off the air said that the Cubs, you weren't really sure about them. Now, I'm not sure about the Cubs anytime the playoffs begin because I think they're going to get knocked out. But I thought adding Gossman and now adding Clay Holmes to a starting pitching staff that needed pitching, I thought those were a couple of really good moves for them. Now, I don't know what Gossman's going to be. He's not the same guy that he used to be. But they also get Tyrone Taylor as well, who can mash left-handed pitching. So I think if the Cubs are done, and my guess is they are, I think they've done enough to get themselves back into the postseason again. Do I still trust these guys to go far, Joe? No, I've seen the story before, and I'd probably take the other side of whoever they play in the playoffs. But I think at least for now, I think they've done a pretty good job as well. But I want to caution people, though, because I've been down this rodeo or this street a million times, and we're still going to see stuff happen between now and 6 p.m. I think the reason why Foster Griffin of the Washington Nationals hasn't been traded is because I think this could end up being a huge blockbuster for whoever gets Foster Griffin in the next hour. I think that the Nationals are playing this thing right down to the wire at 6 p.m. Maybe Casey Mize is another name that goes. But some of the needs that most of the teams, I think that they were addressed, which is rare. Usually it all happens in the last hour, but a lot of it happened today. And then I'm talking a lot, but the last one I want to review, and then I'll throw it back to you, is the trade that the Phillies made to get Luis Arias. I don't know what that's going to mean for their future. It doesn't seem like they gave up a ton to get him. There's a lot of moving parts now. Arias will play second. Bryce Harper will go to the outfield. Alec Bohm will go to first base. Arias is the National League's leading hitter. He certainly will help them get to the postseason. I'm still a believer that the Phillies are good. I'm not buying that this is a collapse for them, and I think that they now have put themselves in a better position to win as well. So we'll go through it all. There were a lot of trades today, but off the top of my head, in today's trades, those are the ones that really stick out to me. Number one, the Red Sox all in. Number two, Cubs doing just enough to solidify a playoff spot. And number three, never forget it, Joe, when LeBron talks, or Harden talks, or Brady talks, or Bryce Harper talks, the front offices react, and they reacted to him, Joe, no question about it.
Yeah, and it didn't take long to figure out who some of the sellers are, and the Mets proceeding to their fire sale, which we kind of knew what was happening here. You mentioned Clay Holmes, who's very close to returning after that horrific leg injury. I think it was against the Yankees earlier, but apparently he is close to returning. Great news for the Cubs here now. But some of the guys that they have parted way with they were under team control. So I'm not quite sure what the Mets were doing, but it looks like Luke Weaver, and I didn't see this one coming, on his way to Pittsburgh. Mets obviously taking over a lot of that, having to eat some of that contract. But he has been one of the steady forces in that bullpen of the Mets, which has been a train wreck for a while. I didn't see Pittsburgh buying. Did you, Greg, here in the spot?
Yeah, they had to do it. They could. I would say this, Joe. It's a great question and fair on your part to ask, but I think you can't let, in this case, 72 hours destroy what has been a mildly successful season for Pittsburgh. I'll say mildly because, again, I understand they have fallen on their face over the last few days. They've fallen behind San Diego, Arizona, Miami, and they're just above Washington, I think, in St. Louis now, and so I get it. But just like Boston, in a way, there's a lot of pressure on that front office to win. They could not let this go by and not fix the back end of the ninth inning. So they got Weaver, they got Camilo Doval. I don't know that solves all their problems. Let's see what they do also in the next hour, because I did think that they were a playoff team, but you can't take away 20 home runs or 25 home runs from Ryan O'Hearn for 6 weeks and think all of a sudden you're going to replace him with just an average player. It's not going to happen. So maybe they would jump in the market and get somebody else as well. But your point is well taken, Joe. Pittsburgh had to do this. They don't make the playoffs often. You got Paul Skeens. I know Skeens hasn't been Skeens, but you got Paul Skeens. You got Lau. What a great trade that was in the offseason to play second base. They had to try, Joe. That's not an organization that could just say, let's just reset it again for next year. Couldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, we knew we were getting a lot of turnover from the Mets. You and I also talked during the week that likely the Giants would be getting a lot of turnover as well, and we've seen them also. I believe 5 in 4. Louis Ariz, you mentioned, Caleb Killian, Tyler Mahle on his way. Robbie Ray, also
that's
interesting.
The one. Right.
Yeah, that's the real interesting one here. Eric Miller, by the way, still available, but looks like drawing a lot of interest there. But Robbie Ray to the Padres, another team that we said was going to need pitching, starting pitching, and goes from one pitcher's ballpark to the even a better pitcher's ballpark, actually, at Petco. So interesting move here. We knew they'd sell the Giants. We thought the Padres would do something to address the starting pitching. They did. Will any of this be enough here still to take down the Dodgers, who, once again, have won the headlines? But did they really? Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid. right, welcome back in. Game time decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Raineri alongside Craig Mish as, well, let's see, T-minus 48 minutes and counting till the top of the hour, at which point that'll be when the trading deadline closes officially in Major League Baseball. But a lot can happen over the next 40 minutes or so. A lot has already happened. And even, Craig, we're learning the Yankees not exactly done when we just went to the break. Looks like they might be adding yet another giant. Giants are big. The Mets are big sellers. Not shocking, but maybe a little outfield help for the Yankees.
Yeah, the reports are Helio Ramos, who will do a nice job as sort of insurance in case Stanton and in case Judge can't come back. And he's not going to replace those guys. You know that, Joe. But it does give them some extra pop. They added Luis Garcia. So that's, some offense, too, for them. I would say that, honestly, it's kind of tough because the Yankees really didn't need to do a ton on the pitching end. It was more on the hitting end that they needed to get better, and there really wasn't a lot available, Joe. So they didn't. To me, they haven't gotten creative enough to make me feel any different about them in the postseason. I feel like the Rays did that, and I feel like the Rays probably are in a better position. I think the Red Sox may end up being in a better position. I mean, the key for the Yankees is honestly the trade that they didn't make and the trade that they're hoping to make, which is that they're hoping that they could get this guy Aaron Judge back in their lineup at some point, because I just honestly think that without him, the Yankees are cooked, as the kids say. But I'm still looking for some stuff here to me. And Milwaukee, they made one trade, I guess. I don't think that they did anything significant. But Joe, this is sort of their MO. They really don't do crazy things. The Guardians were in a bigger position. They got Joe Adele. That was their one big move. But the one silent team here that I haven't seen much from, you correct me if I'm wrong here, and there is Adele, of course, now, who I think will help Cleveland a lot, by the way. They need help on offense. Or Arizona, Joe. Arizona is sitting ahead of Philadelphia. They're in the number 1 wild card spot. They just watched the team in the number 3 spot in San Diego get themselves Robbie Ray. Great move for the Padres. Puts them exactly where they need to be. Do they have enough pitching, Joe? No. But at least Robbie Ray joins a rotation full of nothing, okay? So now at least they have something, him and Michael King. But you're telling me that the Diamondbacks before 6 p.m. are going to do nothing? I question that. So let's see what they get under the hood here in the next 45 minutes or so. My prediction would be something big from them.
What is usually at this point in the process, Craig, as we within the final 40 minutes here at the deadline? Do the prices get more expensive? Do they come down? Are teams more willing to make a move? Or if it really hasn't been done at this point, what else could we possibly expect here down the home stretch?
Yeah, no, now this is the sellers calling back the buyers with less than an hour to go. That's what's happening here. So any team that was kind of holding pat, now they're calling back and they're saying, all right, look, give me, they call it the best and final. So like once you kind of say that, Joe, that's the end. When you tell a team, what is your best and final offer? Let's just use money as an example. And I'm a general manager, and I call back another general manager, and I say, okay, what's your best and final? And they say $7. Like you have to know that that's it. You can't go back again after that. And you can, but you're not going to be looked at amongst your peers as somebody that's doing things on the up and up. So you basically have to say, all right, this is it. What's your best and final? Yes or no, or you're going to move on to something else. You can't just keep going back again. That usually ends the conversation. So we're not there yet, though. We're not at best and final yet. We're going to be there in about 30 minutes. So some things will sneak in the end. But yes, expiring contracts, guys like Mize, guys like Griffin, players on strictly 1-year deals have to be at least considered. And the other thing that will happen here in the final hour, which will get freaky, is that you've heard rumors like, for example, the Giants have torn it all the way down. The Mets have torn it all the way down. So now what is potentially happening is David Stearns in New York and Buster Posey with San Francisco. I assume it's him, or it could be somebody else. They're now calling on Lindor, and they're now calling on Devers. and just seeing right now what it would take. They're experimenting, Joe. They're seeing, okay, what will it take right now for us to dump, I hate to say it, to trade Lindor or to trade Devers. And then they get, and it may not happen, but now this sets the tone, Joe, for November and December. Okay, we talked back then. This is what you said. You knew who we liked. We know who we like as well. And then all of a sudden, you already have the framework for something potentially that can be done at the end. And that's when you see some of the national insiders or, people like me in the past report after the deadline, hey, here's a deal that almost happened, which really didn't almost happen, but could have happened because they were just talking about it. So sometimes that's what happens here at the very end. And you never know, man. You never know. What if some team, what if the Yankees, I'm using them, was to say, okay, we'll take Devers and that $280 million. And then what if the Giants say,
you never know.
Take him. You got him. Oh my gosh. Okay. Then you get a deal. But if not, maybe it's revisited again in the offseason to say, hey, remember when we had that conversation? And by the way, it's not like they don't talk in between those times, but you want to set the framework for players because the whole front office is going to weigh in on prospects and they have to do medicals and all of that stuff. So that's what makes it so much fun here at the end. Yes, I've seen crazy things happen at the end.
Well, it's interesting because I think Rushman was not a name that we thought we would hear, certainly not moving within the American League East. But, it's one thing to say, hey, we're sending him to Milwaukee or we're sending him to Arizona, but to send him to your rival in Boston is interesting. And listen, it's not just Boston. It's not just the Yankees. Tampa, you mentioned, has been pretty darn busy working the phones and trying to solidify what they've got going on for a run at this in the postseason. So they've gotten some pitching. They got some catching help here. We'll go over exactly what Tampa is looking to do and what does it all mean for them. Is it a good day? Is it a bad? Are they done? I don't think they're done yet. I think they're still going to try. And it's good to see teams like Tampa going, listen, we're very much in this. I think getting Freddie Peralta and Liam Hicks and now Wells is done deal. Tyler Wells, I think very interesting moves here by the Tampa Bay Rays. But does any of it matter? Because, again, a guy named Skubal is heading to L.A. We'll talk about it as Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid. right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Tick-tock here, under 40 minutes left in the Major League Baseball trade deadline as teams working the phones, trying to get those last-minute deals in place. And we keep hearing, I believe Red Sox and Giants are in the process of trying to close a deal. Eric Miller, the reliever, looks like he might be heading to Boston. Marcelo Meyer was, you had mentioned, Greg, was a very highly touted prospect. Could be on his way to the Giants. So the Giants are really lighting a match and starting from scratch here. And the Red Sox just keep bolstering here, get some of that bullpen solidified in the back end. And boy, oh boy, they you gotta appreciate teams that have just pushed it all in and said, you know what, it's now or never. It's interesting.
Yeah, and look, I think the Giants are, kind of a case where it's a little fascinating to me, Joe, because the previous president of baseball operations there was the guy who came from the Dodgers, and Farhan Zaidi. And you may remember the Giants were very big on, and still are probably big on, analytics and making sure they restock their farm system and all that jazz like every other team. And then Buster Posey came in, Joe, immediately traded for Devers. Yeah. And traded away Harrison and a bunch of prospects. And then now he's pivoting exactly back to where Farhan Zaidi was a couple of years ago. So what's interesting to me, Joe, is that there's obviously this level of cachet and greatness for Buster Posey because he played for the organization and he's arguably a top 5 Giant of all time at the worst. I mean, Barry Bonds, Willie McCovey, and Marichal. Mm-hmm. So I mean, Buster Posey's in that conversation of guys. But Joe, it's like you're driving one way and then you just make a U-turn and now they're going back the other way. So, but crazy. I mean, look, it looks like they got a lot of young players and I think they're going to end up doing a good job. But it does beg the question: where is the ship headed out? Where's the sail headed for San Francisco? I don't know the answer. Maybe part of that, Joe, is that they just can't secure any good players in free agency. Nobody wants to play there, and they're going to have to try to do things a different way. The only way they could do it is via trade, because anytime they sign someone, it feels like it's an overpay of some kind. Willy Adames, Jorge Soler. It feels like they got to overpay bad contracts to get players to go there. So maybe this bodes well for the future, but I would tell you this: cap, floor, CBA, no CBA, Joe, the Giants are not going to be a good club next year. This is headed into, I think, at least a year of a rebuild. For the Yankees, I don't think this is enough to win the World Series for them. I don't think this is enough to win the American League for them. I think other teams have done better today than them.
Yes, and it's, again, Ramos is okay, gives him a righty bat, outfielder, some flexibility, but, Garcia obviously was the bat they were hoping they could get and did get, but is it enough with what the Red Sox are doing, and especially what Tampa did over the last couple of days? Tampa, I mean, I guess we should not be shocked that Tampa goes out, makes some moves. They have every reason to push their chips in and give this thing a go. How do you rank what they've done so far?
Well, I'm not a huge fan of Peralta, but there's a handful of teams that Peralta could go to, including Milwaukee, Tampa Bay, and Cleveland, those 3 in particular, that seem to get the best out of what you throw, Joe, and make it your primary attack. And look, maybe Peralta, Joe, becomes just one of those 4-inning guys, bulk guys in Tampa Bay. But if so, what's wrong with that? Nothing wrong with that at this point. They did not give up a ton to get him. They gave up a little bit more, it feels like, to get Liam Hicks from Miami. They gave up 3 prospects, including their first-round pick from 2023 that will slide into AA or AAA with Miami and maybe become their third baseman. The other 2 players were a little bit down the list as far as their top 30 is concerned, so not top 100 prospects, but the first player they got, Braden Taylor, was one of them. So with Hicks, Joe, it's pretty simple. Anytime the Rays face right-handed pitching, Liam Hicks is going to play, either DH, catch, or play first base. It's exactly what he did in Miami, and now he's going to do it with the Rays, and it's going to help them. It's going to help them now. It's going to help them in the postseason, and he's signed for like $1 million. So he was a Rule 5 guy. He doesn't have any contract status except for going through this process. Eventually you get to arbitration, but he'll be the Rays. He's not like an elite catcher, but he'll be the Rays catcher of now and the future. And so for a team that's going for it, it made a lot of sense. And Tampa Bay and Miami have a lot of familiarity with each other. So my guess is that's sort of how that deal came together.
Yeah, well, it's I'm sure he knows. I believe, right? You said a lot of familiarity. I think the players on their way to. Yeah. Right, he came from Tampa, so he's got to know exactly what he's getting in return there. So, but Tampa certainly didn't sit on their hands and hope they got better. They went out and did something. So, kudos to them. But we're not done yet. Still got about 30 minutes to go. We've got you covered as Game Time Decisions continues on the grid. All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Raineri alongside Craig Mish as T-minus 30 minutes here until the deadline in Major League Baseball. That is the trading deadline. We've had a lot going on. In fact, of course, Saturday night there, Craig, was the big news. And I was kind of shocked that it happened on Saturday because I thought, Skubal going anywhere would have been one of the later, today, even in the later hours, if it was going to happen. And, well, we learned Saturday night, which is kind of crazy to me. And I don't know if did they think this was the best offer they were going to get? I'm not quite sure what the rush was with Tariq Skubal, especially to the Dodgers. But I guess it was more than enough for Detroit to say, yeah, sure, no problem. He's on the way here. But, of course, that's just giving everyone, 48 to 72 hours to stick a fork in Major League Baseball and declare it dead now, as if Skubal guarantees them to win another World Series. That's a lot more can go wrong than go right. I don't care who's on this team. And by the way, I mean, are they barely 500 since July 1st? So I would slow the horses on automatically giving them the championship. You know this, Craig. Anything is possible. There's a lot of baseball left to be played. But I didn't understand the rush to hurry up and get it done on Saturday.
I agree, and with virtually all your sentiments, the other thing that I would say is that if you were ever thinking about betting on any other team to win the World Series outside of the Dodgers, your window is now open here for a couple days. You know, like this is it. The worst thing you could do right now is to take the Dodgers. The best thing that you could do is just take everybody else, because their odds are getting hurt by these silly people thinking that one player is going to win a World Series for them. I really don't have a full explanation for it. What I do know is that people who said that, oh, they traded him because he wanted to go there and get extended, we know that's not true. We know that's not true. He's going to free agency. He's got Scott Boras. The most ridiculous statement you could ever make is that. And then the other thing that you could wonder is that you're right. Why Tampa? Why Milwaukee? Why some of these other teams didn't go a little bit deeper in their farm system to get Skubal? Well, I would ask you this. Milwaukee is not quite done. I don't know that they've done enough necessarily to get over the top, but would you say that you'd be happy with what Milwaukee got? I think that you would say potentially yes. Hold on. I think we may have another trade here. So let me put the glasses on here. I'm getting a text
there
here.
It is.
So let me tell you. Aha. Okay. So there you go. All right. So Robert, I'm not taking credit for these. Okay. I'm not taking credit for these. Okay. I'm not going to do that here. If I'll take credit. So Robert Murray says, as expected, Joe, Foster Griffin has been traded and he's going to Cleveland. So that's my point. Cleveland, Milwaukee, Tampa Bay. They did not get Skubal, but it seems like they all did pretty good without getting them. So, and I'm not saying that these guys are Skubal, but the prospect capital that those teams, the lower market teams, they can't afford to give up those kind of players for a guy to pitch 2 months on a whim to maybe win the World Series. Like the Dodgers were simply in the best position to win. This is like the cherry on top. So, I mean, the stupidity of people thinking that, oh, anybody, even Skubal himself, I'm sorry, coming out today saying, oh, anybody could have gone for me, and anybody could have, not in this collective bargaining agreement, not the way the payroll disparity is. No, how could whatever Cleveland gave up, double it to give up Skubal, and then watch Cleveland in the next 2 years be behind the Twins in the standings? Did they want to do that? No. So now they get Foster Griffin, who is not Skubal, okay, not close, but he's pretty good. He's going to throw 6-7 innings for you, it seems like, every time.
Yep.
I'm sure what they gave up, they're comfortable in giving up. Washington, as I said, they're going to wait right to the end. Here they went till 5:34 Eastern. And that's the dynamic that we're living in Major League Baseball. It doesn't mean that the world is crashing down. And Joe, you said, made the best point of all. It doesn't mean that the Dodgers are going to guarantee to win the World Series. No, it guarantees them getting in. It guarantees them probably winning the first round. It's going to be impossible probably to beat Skubal and Yamamoto and these guys in the first round. But you're telling me in a 7-game series, you'd be shocked that the best home team in baseball, Milwaukee, beats LA 3 times? I wouldn't be shocked. It's baseball. It's sports. March Madness. Yep. The best teams don't win. It's a tournament. It's the same thing here. So it kind of makes me crazy to see this sort of stuff. But I don't think a season gets canceled because of it, and I don't think this drives any point home or anything like that. The Dodgers are doing a great job operating how they're supposed to, and so is Cleveland, and so is Milwaukee, and so is Tampa Bay. They're being responsible about how they're operating. Joe, can those 3 teams predict if there's going to be a cap and a floor next year? We think so, but do we know? No.
Of course. No. Yeah. And to your point, the idea that teams were, how can teams just let the Dodgers do it? There's only a handful of teams, one of them being the Yankees, who really had no need for Skubal in any way, shape. They had other needs. So there's only a handful of teams that actually could have offered up enough to compete with what the Dodgers were going to offer. But I'll say this, guy, I think this had a lot more to do, and I mentioned it last week to you. To me, this was more about he's not going anywhere to pitch against us in a 7-game series. We would rather give it up, give up the talent in our farm, which they have plenty of, but we'd rather go that route so he doesn't have to pitch. We don't have to beat him 3 times in a 7-game series. So the Dodgers, don't know whether they're going to be able to. This isn't about extending him. They know they're going to be in a total battle if they want to sign him long term. But that might not be their game. But I think the Dodgers are in a better place, not because Skubal is pitching for them, but simply because he's not pitching against them with anybody else. Come on, which I think it makes it a very interesting situation, right?
Yeah. And now here we are at the end of the line with 30 minutes to go, and you could honestly say that with the two minor moves, and I'm not saying they won the deadline, but with the two minor moves that Cleveland has made, getting Foster Griffin to now pitch in a postseason game, maybe game 2, maybe game 1, but let's just say game 2 for them, getting Joe Adell from the Angels to help the offense, all of a sudden, you're looking at a team that decided we have a chance to win the division, and now we have a much better chance to win the division by making, and that's why Cleveland, Joe, is such a good organization. They're in it every year. They don't have to go out and get crazy. They still have Jose Ramirez and some other players teetering around 500.
Yep.
Moves like this is why they're in it every year. They may not win it every year, but they're in it every season. So pretty good move. A pretty shrewd move, I think, from Cleveland. I have to see what the return was, by the way, in that trade, too, I should say, because, boy, Washington's stacked now. Washington's getting so many prospects. The Twins also, according to Jeff Passan of ESPN, acquired Jeff Hoffman from the Blue Jays, who just told the reporters in Toronto that he was not going anywhere. I just saw this about 10 minutes ago. He is. He's going to the Twins. The Twins. What is the Twins doing, Joe? The Twins. Oh, my gosh. I don't know what they gave up. Maybe nothing. Poor Jeff Hoffman. One really, really bad appearance for Jeff Hoffman. Seems like it's like derailed his career. I can't figure out what the Twins are doing, and I officially can't figure out what the Blue Jays are doing, too, Joe. Maybe you can help me.
Well, the Twins have been saying that they've been working on adding right-handed relief to the bullpen to bolster it there. You know, we had mentioned on Friday the left-hander A.J. Minter. They got him from the Mets. They got Kremer from Baltimore on Friday. Now they've just added Hoffman here, and all of this leads me to believe that Ryan Jeffers is likely going nowhere now because they're buying a lot. So Minnesota, you know, trying to help that worst bullpen in the American League, try to bolster that a little bit. If they got a need, they're addressing it. Will it be enough?
Joe, let me ask you something, Joe. Just knowing what you know right now, and you could only make one bet on winning the division, Cleveland or Minnesota, 10 times out of 10, you're taking Cleveland, right? You're not going to take Minnesota. Knowing what you know, right? Would you consider Minnesota?
I am. I would, but I also don't have Minnesota season tickets. So, you know, perception is reality as well, Greg. Game Time Decisions continues here on the Greg. All right, here we go. T-minus 18 minutes and counting here until the trade deadline will have passed in Major League Baseball. Joe Raineri alongside Craig Mish. It's been an interesting last 6 or 7 minutes here as we've got the Twins adding more to their bullpen here, trying to make a run. You got the Guardians acquiring Foster Griffin from the Nationals. Any idea, Craig, on the cost of what these two moves? Nothing yet here.
I haven't seen that. You know, another perplexing question, I guess, Joe, that I would have for you is that Houston ended up getting Dalton Varsho, so they got the outfielder that they were looking for. It's not a game changer for them, but it feels. Joe, the AL West. What did the AL West do? Stare at each other for
I agree.
17 hours?
I agree.
I mean, Texas, didn't do much.
Did Seattle even make a move?
They got somebody. I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe the guys will help us out here. I know Seattle definitely made one trade today. I'm positive about that.
Well, they got rid of Castillo, right?
Taylor Ward.
They got Taylor Ward. Yes.
Right. So that's it's a good move. Yes, it's a good move for them. He's going to help, and he'll hit 7 home runs or something between now and the end of the season. But the AL West is for the taking, and Houston did a little, and Seattle did a little, and Texas. I guess Texas feels they're done, huh? I mean, for these reports saying that they wanted to at least ask DeGrom if he would go, and now I see that they maybe wanted to ask Eovaldi if he would go. It feels like Texas just is hanging out, but you see the standings there. I mean, 1 5-game streak for Seattle or Texas or Houston, who just had a 5-game streak, could have put this thing away. And they really, I don't know, maybe they just like who they have and they feel like they're hanging around. But Joe, I will tell you this: if Seattle misses the postseason for all of this, there's gonna be hell to pay there. I mean, Texas at least has a World Series. Texas just won a World Series a few years ago. I know people forget, but they just did. It hasn't been that long. Seattle, no excuse.
No excuse not to do anything in there. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what Toronto is doing here because I don't understand the Soriano trade. And they give up Gausman, they take Soriano, but Soriano is under team control for another year, which could be part of maybe they're playing the long game here. But the reality, or maybe they still have a chance of flipping him for something else. But it would seem like you just, removed one of your better back-end arms and closers there to the Twins for prospects. You got rid of Gausman. Now you got Soria. What are they doing? I don't know what Toronto is doing. You and I thought, maybe Bieber likely going to be scratched tonight since he was a 1-year rep. Well, that hasn't happened. And by the way, Dalton Varsho is in Houston, is he not? They're playing Houston, so he just went across the way. That's great. So he's likely walking down the other tunnel right now here. And you had said it too. They needed more left-handed hitting. They needed an outfielder. Dalton Varsho, like you said, is not going to put them over the top, but it's exactly what they needed and what they were hoped to add.
Yeah, and I guess Houston's just feeling a lot better about themselves because they're playing much better. I still don't really love their team. I have to acknowledge that they have the best player in baseball, so I guess we can start there. And when you have Alvarez, that's a game changer there. Paredes behind him, Pena. They say Correa may come back. Altuve, very good offense, Joe. Very good offense. The pitching, I don't know that it is enough, but still 15 minutes left to see if they end up doing something. And thanks to Chris for sending me the prospects that Cleveland gave up. I just did a quick glance at it. Doesn't look like they gave up a ton here, Cleveland. Looks like Washington went for bulk as opposed to one of Cleveland's best prospects. I don't see any of their top 10 or top 15 prospects going in return to Washington for Foster Griffin. That could be by design. We'll wait till Washington and Taboni, the GM, ends up talking about it. I don't ever indict these guys until they have a plan. Washington, they could feel, Joe, that there's a certain position that they're weak in the minor leagues, and rather than taking one guy in a deal, they want to take several and hope that one of them works because they're weak, let's say, in the infield or the outfield or pitching or relievers. So we'll see what Washington has to say. Either way, Washington is going to be irrelevant in the postseason race, Joe, but you got to give them massive credit for signing Foster Griffin when no one had any interest in him coming from overseas. He had a great year, and they take 4 prospects from another team. I mean, Griffin, Joe, he could have been horrible. He could have pitched 10 innings this year and given up, 20 runs, and that's the end of him. And instead, he was one of the best left-handed pitchers in baseball. Great job. Great job by Washington getting this done. And I got to say, they're coming on fast, Joe. I mean, Wood, Abrams, I mean, to get themselves some pitching next year, maybe next 2 years, Washington is back relevant again.
It's being reported, too, and we mentioned this on Friday, Craig, that Lars Nootbaar has now been removed from batting practice, and he's in the dugout, apparently, hugging everybody, which usually means that he's on his way out the door here at some point. It looks like he's been scratched from the lineup, so don't know where he is going, but he was a name that was very much associated with the Houston Astros, adding, more outfielders there and help. So this would be, we thought he'd be on the way out. It was just a matter of where at this point, but looks like he's being hugged by all the coaches right now. It's being reported. So, and by the way, similar, Jacob deGrom, great story, comes out earlier today and says, listen, I had no intentions of leaving here. I want to be with Texas. And it turns out, I guess, now the Rangers are reporting Eovaldi's not going anywhere either. So anybody hoping to add one of those two, not going to happen. And kudos to them, because I'm with you. With those two guys up at the top of the rotation, they're finally starting to get Seager back healthy. It's not like they're that far removed from it, Greg, where they can't make a run at this.
Yeah, so it looks like you mentioned Nootbaar. Who's reporting that, by the way, guys? Before I throw that on the air, I want to make sure I don't. So who do you guys have reporting that? Okay, so Alden Gonzalez is very reputable from ESPN. He says that Lars Nootbaar, Joe, is going to the Diamondbacks. So there you go. So there's the Diamondbacks.
There you go.
Before the deadline, the Diamondbacks are not good enough to win the World Series. They're probably not good enough to go deep in the playoffs. But I would tell you that the bottom of their lineup stinks. So this is a major add for them. A left-handed bat that's going to bat fifth or sixth, especially against righties, may bat a little bit higher in the lineup. Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte. That's not bad, Joe. The top of their lineup is not bad.
No, it's not.
They needed a little bit more. Always these snakes are sneaky here on trade deadline day. Remember this for next year too, 10 minutes before when they end up getting somebody. So it's not a deal I don't think that'll put them over the top by any means, but it doesn't surprise me. The Diamondbacks, it doesn't surprise me. So there you go. I mean, look, Arizona is behind the Cubs, and they're in the second wild card spot over the Phillies. 10 minutes to go to the deadline. I don't think it's going to end up that way. It never does. But Cubs, Diamondbacks, Phillies are the three wildcard teams. Right behind them, San Diego, Miami, and then Pittsburgh. I got the Cardinals. We don't need to talk about them, I think, for the rest of the season. And Washington, too. I'm saying, I'm actually, Joe, I will say, well, they traded Dustin May. Cardinals ended up doing the right thing. They traded their expiring guys.
Yeah, they did. Yes, they actually did. We have some more news and notes coming your way here as Game Time Decisions continues. welcome back in Game Time Decisions as we're in the closing minutes here of this first hour together. Also the closing minutes of the 6 o'clock Eastern Time trade deadline in Major League Baseball. And boy, has it has been interesting to
Very
say
active.
the least here.
Yeah.
And, we talked about it during the week, Craig. We said it's either going to live up to the hype and it's going to be pandemonium, or it's going to be yawn fest, and people are just going to sit down. But they haven't. Teams who are sellers have sold. Teams that have looked to buy have bought pretty well here across the board. I don't hate a lot of what we've seen so far. I think it's the right teams are selling. I still don't know, except for Toronto. I have no idea what they're doing, but I think for the most part, the right teams are buying who should be, and the teams that have sold off and said, okay, enough is enough, I think they're making the right decisions, like the Cardinals here.
Yeah, I think that for the average fan who really doesn't watch baseball all that often, they'll call this trade deadline a dud. But for anybody that watches baseball, to see at least 100 trades over the last 24 hours, I mean, this was very, very active as it could possibly be, Joe. It felt like we had trades going on from morning till night today. So that's just also a reminder for next year as well. And I try to remind people this every year, is that just very little gets done until the last 48 hours. And you just have to wait until the end. There's a reason why there's deadlines in this and the NBA and football as well. And free agency opens. That's when people say it's the same thing in all sports. Sports works well with deadlines, and baseball does too. So we got about 10 minutes to go. After the dust settles, we'll come back at the top of the hour and discuss who, sort of the winners and losers are. But I don't feel like there are a ton of losers. I mean, on the season, it's an easy loser. I mean, to me, the Mets are without a doubt the biggest loser of the season, to me, to have the second highest payroll in Major League Baseball and have to trade all of these players, Joe, at the deadline. And make no mistake about it, they wish they could trade more. They wish they could trade more. They wish they could trade Bichette if they could. They can't. They wish they could probably trade one of Lindor or Soto. They can't. Polanco maybe was the worst signing of all, Joe. I think he's 0 for 27 or something like that. I mean, like, the way and Luis Robert hasn't been traded yet, and no one even wants him probably, Joe. Like, the Mets are probably going to have to send all of Robert's money to somebody else in the next 5 minutes just to get anything back. I mean, it's a disaster of a team, and lifeless team too. I mean, I don't know if you were watching Sunday's game. How many times, Joe, they have second and third or bases loaded and just swing and hit home runs? Like, just put the ball in play and score a run. That's a team that's looking to go golfing in a month and a half or 2 months. So I have to give the big L to the Mets this season, because they could have never imagined them being sellers, let alone selling off the entire team. And Joe, in the end, did they really get a lot back for any of these guys that they traded? Probably not. Probably not. I mean, these were not great players. These were. I mean, they're going to do okay, and they're going to get a couple AA and single A guys back. And Stearns is really good with that, so I'm sure that he ended up doing well. But very dismal, disappointing season for them. Who's going to a Mets game in August and September now?
Nobody. No, absolutely nobody. I'll tell you this too, by the way, kind of under the radar here, but I kind of like it. The Brewers added Antonio Senzatella from the Rockies to their rotation. Now, this guy's been in the league for 10 years, I believe, all with the Rockies. But I've seen him now on a couple of different occasions pitch, and he has been fantastic. And anytime you can get out of Colorado as a pitcher, and the fact that I think he's 9-2 on the season, he's been very good for them this year. He's going to be really good for Milwaukee, giving them another option, another arm there. They got a lot of young arms in that rotation right now. I think having a veteran presence here for a guy having a career year at 30, 31 years old, not a bad, quietly the Brewers are doing exactly what they need to do here, Greg.
Yeah, the Brewers always get those little small deals. They never make the big, they never truly go all in. I guess when they got CC Sabathia 10 years ago, that was like the furthest in that they've gone. But I agree with you. Senzatella, he's going to give them innings. Chris Kofsky sends us another trade here. ESPN reports the Guardians also got Nathaniel Lowe in a trade with the Reds. So that's, a back-end pinch-hitting type guy, right-handed pitcher. They'll play him. Yep. Not a huge get, but again, Lowe in September, Joe, is going to hit a big home run, and we'll remember this conversation like, wow, Cleveland really knows what they're doing. Pretty much they do. Pretty much. Reds didn't do anything, huh? Reds quiet, right? Reds nothing?
There's a few of them here, Craig, that I'm still scratching my head here. But, hey, we've got plenty more to go here. There will still be some trades that trickle out even after the top of the hour. So come back and join us. Game Time Decisions will continue on the grid. All right, welcome back. Game Time Decisions here on what has been a very eventful Monday here, August the 3rd. Joe Raineri alongside Craig Mish. And just like that, the trade deadline is over in Major League Baseball. Of course, that doesn't mean that we won't still be getting some notes here and some reports of trades having already happened, because it's always my understanding, Craig, that the league office sometimes like, oh yeah, by the way, this also took place, and so did this. So we might get a couple of news and notes here over the next 10 or 15 minutes with some things going out. But it has been a very interesting and very active trade deadline where, again, I think teams that should sell did sell. I think teams that certainly needed to make some moves because they're very much alive and well in the races here, except for, again, a handful of teams where I don't know what the Kansas City Royals were doing. I thought they had some guys they absolutely could have could have sold and stocked up on from teams. It looks like Mize did not go anywhere after
he did.
Talk to me, Craig. What do we got? Where'd he go?
He did. Okay,
I told you
John
they'd be coming out afterwards.
Yeah, no, always. Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you there. Okay, so John Heyman says, how about this one? Very, very good ad for the Padres.
The Dodgers.
The Padres.
Okay.
So now the Padres have Robbie Ray and Casey Mize in that rotation. So you knew the Padres were not going to stand pat there. So the Padres now have a couple pitchers, Joe. I mean, that's definitely going to help them a lot. All right, so
He is not a guy that we said would sit on his hand. I think you would have been very misleading if AJ Preller sat on his hands and didn't do something to address the pitching, especially now since they've been the #1 hitting team in Major League Baseball for the last couple of weeks. If they can finally start to hit, we know the bullpen's intact. They just needed some starting pitching, and not that JP Sears isn't good, but come on, they need a front end guy, and they got a couple of pretty good ones here.
Yeah, the Marlins also made a couple trades here at the deadline, trading Connor Norby, who was their starting third baseman. We're actually starting first baseman to open up the season, and a relief pitcher named Aiden May to Colorado for a pitcher named Victor Vodnik. So Vodnik, I was wondering why they went and got him, because there really was no room for him. But then they just made another trade, and they traded Lake Bacher, who has been one of their late inning guys, to the Pittsburgh Pirates. So yeah, so that's the Marlins subtraction. I thought Bacher was pretty good. So Miami really, did they do any? I don't think they really did any buying or selling. They kind of just traded some excess players to get value. I'll wait to see who they got from Pittsburgh here. Vodnik was really good on the road, Joe, but in course, he was an absolute disaster. In fact, opening weekend, right. I don't know if you remember this, Vodnik gave up a walk-off home run in Miami to Owen Casey when the Marlins beat the Rockies. So anyway, more on the Marlins coming later, but there's still a lot of trades happening. I think, again, the last 5-minute takeaway here, Padres absolutely put themselves into major contention for the wild card, not for the division, Joe, but for the wild card. Right. So as this plays out here, with Miami kind of standing pat, I don't know. I think it's fair to say at this point, San Diego for this year definitely got better. Diamondbacks got better. Pirates feel like they made a late surge here to try to get better too. And without a doubt, the Cubs and the Phillies did also. But I this could go any way, and we'll see what happens down to the wire in the next couple of months. And by the way, there still could be a trade that we don't know yet. So let me keep checking here.
Yeah, well, some names that I thought would have swapped uniforms here. Reed Detmers and Casey Mize were the two guys that I thought would. Now, Soriano got traded earlier, we said, to Toronto from the Angels. I thought Reed Detmers was another guy that absolutely, and I thought maybe the Padres for him in that spot there. But as far as I can see, he is still not. He's still on the Angels here, but Mize and Foster Griffin now, and Tariq Skubal, some of the bigger starting pitching names that have been moved at the deadline. A lot of bullpen help, but that's it every year, isn't it? The bullpens, we're always getting a lot of bullpen movement, right? At the trade deadline, Craig, that's usually par for the course.
Yeah, and think of, like, let's put Miami aside here for a minute. Let's think of Pittsburgh, Joe. Pittsburgh. This is something they had to do. Even if they don't win anything, Joe, they're blowing more saves than anybody in baseball, without a doubt, in the National League. They get to the 7th inning and they have all this great starting pitching and they have no bullpen. Now they ended up with Camilo Doval, Lake Bacher from Miami, and I believe they got one more, right? I'm missing somebody. I think they got one. Was it Hoffman? Did they get Hoffman? They got three. They got three. Yep. The Pirates got 3 arms today to help fix that bullpen. So they had to do it, Joe. And the other thing too is that you think of it from this perspective. And this goes beyond the game a little bit, Joe. It goes beyond paying for a ticket. You go pay for a ticket at a Major League Baseball game. You sit through the whole game. Your team is winning in the 7th, and then the team loses. And then you go back again and they lose again. Joe, are you going to go buy a ticket again to go see your team lose like that? No. So sometimes you have to do what's best for the organization, even if it means sacrificing a little bit to make sure you win those home games. People can't pay their $50, $100 ticket to go see Paul Skeens. He's winning 2-0 after 6 innings, and then they lose the game. You can't have that. And although Skeens hasn't been that great, you can't have that consistently happen. So, hey, credit to the Pirates. Credit to the Pirates here. I'm with you. I thought maybe that was it, but no, they're trying here.
Yep, they're making an effort here, and it's kudos, because they still, don't forget, have to try to convince one Paul Skeens that they are invested and ready to do what is necessary to try to make the postseason each and every year. But that bullpen was something that needed to be addressed, and it got addressed in a big way. Some of the moves not hard to come by. We knew Washington would be active. We thought maybe they'd buy a little, but they ended up selling a little bit here, and the future looks bright for them too with the amount of picks that they got in return here. But some teams didn't do a lot, and you and I mentioned the American League, the Western. What
Very
exactly is going on with Seattle and? Texas, granted, you're happy with what you got. You didn't give away anything. That's okay. But I thought the Astros might get some pitching. Dalton Varsho was the only thing they ended up getting. I don't know what's going on with the American League West, especially Seattle.
Yeah, I don't think Seattle did nearly enough to justify it if they don't make the playoffs, Joe. I mean, that's going to be a very tough pill to swallow. But they chose to sort of stand pat. Texas sort of chose to stand pat. Houston really didn't do a ton, but they don't have a lot of prospects to give up, Joe. So maybe they just kind of felt like to keep guys within their system. And honestly, I mean, finally, after all of these years, it took John Mozeliak jumping in with the Angels to finally do the right thing. And it seems like they finally unloaded a lot of players on that team to try to get better for the future. Hopefully they give him some leash to do that, because the Angels have just been, looks like, fighting themselves every single year. So I credit the Angels actually in that division. I know nobody wants to say, oh, they didn't win. How can you give credit to a team that stinks? But I finally feel like maybe the Angels are headed in the right direction. Joe, they have a great market. People go to the games there all the time. They're constantly getting 30,000 people. It's time for them to get on some sort of winning path. It's been forever since they won that World Series. I think it was like back in 2002 or something like that. So look, they're going to stink for the rest of the season. They're going to try to get themselves the first pick in the draft. It's the direction they needed to go.
Yeah, it's we have more coming up on that Padres deal to get Casey Mize. We'll let you know exactly what's going on with that one. But the Padres, certainly that front of the rotation just got that much better for them. If the hitting maintains now, Padres looking to make some noise in the postseason as a wild card. Arizona also in the conversation. A lot of teams here. Got a lot of reshuffling going on. We'll go over it all as Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid. All right. Welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network as we try to make heads or tails of what's going on here as the trade deadline has come and gone in Major League Baseball. It's been a heck of a 72 hours. We learned, of course, Saturday night there with Tariq Skubal going to the Dodgers here. It is now also being confirmed that Zach Nato and Reed Detmers staying in Anaheim here. Both had received plenty of interest at the deadline. And you had said, Craig, you give Soriano's gone. Hop had already been traded. You give the Angels credit.
Adele,
it is time it's time to start over. I thought they really could have, what a haul they could have gotten for Detmers and Nato, but apparently, I mean, I think Nato's under control until 2029. So there is still possibility trade aspect here in the offseason. And I believe Detmer is still under control for 2 more seasons. So I wouldn't say they're Angels for life, but the asking price and what they were offered just wasn't enough. But yeah, we'll see what happens from there. But the bottom line is, some teams got pretty good here and start in the American League East. I think Tampa got better. I think Boston got better. I think Baltimore, I don't know what to make of Baltimore except that not for this year, right? It's over.
No. I think for this year, Baltimore
and no catcher for the Yankees, right?
I don't think Adley Rutschman was going to get Baltimore to the postseason, but they certainly don't feel like. I mean, I gotta say, everyone must feel very safe in Baltimore right now with their jobs because they didn't do anything to help themselves this year. Feels like they're gonna run it back. Toronto didn't completely tear it down, but Toronto's not making the postseason this year. And then who am I missing? Are they last, Toronto? Is there another team in that division that I'm missing, or that's it?
No, I mean,
okay,
Tampa,
so that's
Yankees,
it. Tampa, Yankees, Boston, all pushing forward. Baltimore holding, Toronto subtracting, but not all that significantly. Maybe holding out to slight hope that they can make a big run. So I would say that's the direction there. For the Central, I think, again, with all due respect to Minnesota, a little bit of fool's gold with these trades that they're making here. I don't think they're going anywhere. I think Detroit is kidding themselves. If they think they're going anywhere now, that's it. They traded Casey Mize, they traded Skubal. That's the end of Detroit's little run. And I put Cleveland in the driver's seat here, Joe. I put Cleveland in the driver's seat for that division. I don't know what their odds are, even if it's minus money, but that's the team that I would go for. And then out west, very peculiar and odd. I think the Angels are winners today. They finally got Artie Moreno to give up some players, Joe. They finally got him to allow someone to make some trades, so good for them. And between Seattle, Houston, and Texas, I still think it is wide open for the division. There are 50 games left, Joe. There's 50 games, and these teams did like nothing. So Houston right now is the favorite. I think it could be Seattle. I think it could be Texas. I think coin flip that division right to the end.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. You and I have been saying it. The American League is an absolute mess compared to what the National League is. But we also thought for sure in the National League East that, the Braves wouldn't make the splashy move, but they would make some moves that would, what they felt is very well-run organization, what they felt they needed here. They didn't do a whole lot to address, I guess, the starting pitcher issues that they have had with injuries, but outside of what they have, I guess the Braves feel they have enough to make a move here.
Yeah, the Braves, I don't know that the Braves necessarily did enough. And so there's, Alex Anthopoulos is really smart. I'm going to guess, Joe, that they just feel that their injured players are coming back. I don't, that's the only thing that I can kind of come up with here is they feel really good about Schwellenbach and some of these other pitchers and players coming back to help them. They didn't make as many moves as I thought that they would make, but the Lane Thomas move, I think, will help them a little bit. Their bullpen has already been great. There's really no reason to mess with that bullpen. And I think also from Atlanta's point of view, they're probably looking at the division and saying, you know what, we're better than Philadelphia, and we're better than the Marlins probably right now. They probably feel that they are. and they know it's a tournament, so they get into the tournament and then see what happens with. And they really didn't have to give up a lot in this deadline too. So I did think the Braves would do a little bit more, but I'm going to bet that they just think that they're good enough right now to win that division without having to tinker too much.
Yeah, exactly. And the way they have been playing now that Acuna is back and healthy again, fingers crossed. If they'd ever get, Riley back to hitting would be fantastic. But yes, they are ready to go into the final 50 games here. Now, that begs the question, did Philadelphia do enough? Do you like the move with Philly? Changes the defense. Louis, listen, he's not going to jack up 20 home runs between now and the playoffs, right? But he certainly will create some traffic on the base pass, won't he?
I think that Philadelphia, Joe, is super dangerous because of the pitching that they have. They have amazing starting pitching that in a wild card series or a 5-game series, you could absolutely see them going far. The problem is, Joe, we've thought this now for 3 years in a row, and they've fallen flat. But the way that they're built with these little moves that they made, I personally didn't think that they had to do too much. I honestly think, Joe, they're in a slump. They're in a slump. Every team goes 4-11, and I kind of think that's what happened. Again, I watched the games that they played against Miami. They should have won them. They didn't. Duran, he doesn't blow saves. He blew a save. They were up 6-0. They lost the game. Then they lost the next game where they were up. They lost 6-4. I think there's a lot of panic in Philly. I think they're going to be okay. And I think that the ads that they make will get them to the postseason. I feel like coming out of today, I feel confident in saying, and again, I think the Cubs can collapse. They've collapsed before, but I think Chicago makes it, and I think Philadelphia makes it, and I think that last wild card now, I hope Miami stays in it, but if not, I think the last wild card comes down to San Diego and Arizona. And boy, if you're a Padres fan right now, you got to feel pretty fired up now. You're getting to go see 2 really good pitchers that they didn't have 24 hours ago.
Yeah, no, and front end of the rotation kinds of guys too, which is great for them. So, heading into this trade deadline here today, I believe 21 Major League Baseball teams within 4 games of a wild card spot here. So a ton of teams had the opportunity to make some moves to try to bolster their position. Winners and losers, we'll keep telling you about them as Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid. All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the Sports Grid Network. Joe Raineri alongside Craig Mish, trying to make sense of it all as the Major League Baseball trade deadline has come and gone. And like we were saying, heading into today, 21 teams within 4 games of making the postseason. We thought it would be a little busy. It was absolutely busy here, and some clear winners and I guess some clear losers, especially when it comes to the fan bases. I don't know how you're a couple of years removed from 101 wins, Craig, and how do you sell to the Orioles fan base that it's fine? We got it. Like we're heading in the right direction. Are they? Or should we be losing faith here?
Man, this is a tough one because this is a great baseball city. It's a great baseball town. And, you were talking off the air before the show, and I was really thinking about it. It's true. The Orioles did go through a lot of losing for the future. And I got to tell you that I felt like they were coming out of it. And on paper, they were winning. They started to win. They were a fun team, with Gunnar Henderson and Colby Mayo and Rutschman, who they just traded. And they drafted Grayson Rodriguez. And I was thinking, like, this is a team that's going to win 90 games perennially, and if not, maybe in the 80s at least. Maybe they'll make the playoffs sometimes, maybe not. And it just never happened. Colton Cowser, so many of these young guys, it was like, oh, the Orioles have everybody. How do they have so many prospects? And they did, and they never really came out of it. Then they traded, which I thought was an amazing trade, where they got Corbin Burns. But, Joe, I think to me, where this all changed for me is that and I know he got hurt, and I know Corbin Burns is on Arizona. Who knows if he's coming back or not? But when he left the Orioles, Joe, to me, that was the dividing line, because you had the guy. You had him in your building. Yep. You had to find a way. I know he was going to be a free agent, but you had to find a way to keep him in free agency, extension. I mean, he's a Cy Young guy like this, and you had him in your building, and you let him go. And they didn't replace him again. They did not replace him again. You can't win in the big leagues with 1.5 starting pitchers, Joe. You can't do it. It's not possible.
No.
And even though I've said, different things about AJ Preller, okay, with San Diego, and sometimes some screwy things are going on, you got to give that guy credit. That guy at the deadline, by the way, San Diego don't look a lot different than Baltimore right now. No pitching, but they got Machado, they got Tatis, they got Gavin Sheets, they got some really good hitting, but no pitching. So what did he do? Went out and got 2 pitchers. I'm waiting, Joe. Baltimore's trying these pitchers who are like, Zach Eflin, like that's not going to be good enough, man. It's not. It's not. And so I don't know what the answer is, Joe. You're 100% right. I mean, either they got to go out next offseason, and I don't know who the best free agent pitcher out there is, or who the second one is. They must get a front line starter or 2 to fight in that division with the Red Sox, Yankees, and Rays. It is not going to work shopping on the discount aisle for pitching with all this great hitting they have. It's not going to work.
I agree here. And listen, you'll have a lot of, and I understand the argument both ways here, Greg, but there'll be people that think, what are you doing, Brewers? Whatever it was that you needed to do to get Skubal, and to have Miz and Skubal as a 1-2 going into a possible showdown with the Dodgers, that this is a team that should have done it. Like the Brewers, this was your opportunity to stick it to the Dodgers. And yet, I don't hate some of the, I think Logan Henderson is legit. I think, Dusty May, they just ended up getting here with the trade. We talked about how they bolstered that bullpen and Sensatella coming in. They missed out on Peralta, but, the Brewers, I don't hate what they did. I mean, not everybody can get Skubal. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, and as we talked about before, the Brewers have the top prospect in all of baseball, the number one guy. Should they give that guy up for 2 months of Skubal, who is never going to sign back with Milwaukee? I suppose if there's a cap and a floor, I suppose If you knew right now, Joe, there was a cap and a floor, different conversation. But we literally don't know. That's why there's a pending lockout with all of this stuff. They can't do it. You can't do it. And by the way, look at what the Dodgers gave up for the expiring contracts of Max Scherzer and Manny Machado and Trey Turner. I mean, they didn't give up all that. It's the same thing. It's a great pitcher, a generational type pitcher, but for 2 months of baseball and the smart guys that we have running things in the game, you're not going to get what you think you're going to get. And so I don't know why everyone's popping off, Joe, saying that, anybody could have done it. They can't.
Can't do it. And it doesn't make sense because I'd rather have Logan Henderson than 2 months of Scooble. Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid. All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the Sports Grid Network. Joe Raineri alongside Craig Mish as the deadline has come. The deadline is gone. And boy, oh boy, there are going to see a whole lot of familiar names wearing different uniforms coming up in the very near future. And the Cubs are interesting to me now because we just talked about the Brewers, Craig, and we said, hey, listen. Yeah, you can make the same argument with the Cubs. Why didn't they go out and get Scooble? They need to pick because not everybody can get Scooble for 2 months. Right. What they did get, though, is a lot of other arms. They needed to address the pitching, and that's exactly what they did. So agreed. You know, offensively, there's nothing wrong, I think, with the Cubs. The Cubs have more than enough offense to be able to make a run at this. It was always the pitching, to me, that was going to hold them back.
Yeah, and I think, Joe, I could be wrong about this because I'm not in that clubhouse every day and I don't cover that team, so I can't really speak exactly. But, Joe, don't you kind of get the sense that the Brewers just love being who they are? You know, they love being that little pesky team, and they love the guys, and they like their manager, and they like the guys around them. And that's the other thing, too, Joe, is that maybe they don't want to disrupt what they have going on. And I got to believe, Joe, Matt Arnold, who's their GM, probably says to himself, he would never admit it, are we good enough to beat the Dodgers? No. Okay. Is there really anybody out there? Is Scooble going to guarantee us beating the Dodgers? No. Right. And we're probably still not good enough to beat the Dodgers because guess what? Scooble's going to pitch one time in a 5-game series or so the Brewers just, look, we're going to indict them if they get knocked out again in the postseason. And then next year, where they're going to start off in April, they're going to be 12-14, and we're going to go, oh, maybe this is the year. And then they're going to come on and they're going to win again. But baseball's a business, Joe, and you got to fill seats. And if the Brewers, Joe, I got news for you. If they're one of the best home teams in baseball every season, they're going to sell out almost every game. People want to go. They want to go see winning baseball in Wisconsin. You know, this is not like living in South Florida or Tampa where there's a million things to do. What are you going to do in Wisconsin? You're going to the games. You're going to Green Bay. You're going to Milwaukee. You're going to watch football, baseball. And you got to build yourself that way. So, you know, Brewers would love to, at the end of the season, look back, hang up a pennant that they won the division, win a round in the playoffs. And then if they lose, they'll probably say, all right, well, you know, okay. That was the season that we had, and so be it. And it's not a disappointing season for them. Now, on the outside looking in, people, oh, why don't they do enough? Why don't they get Lindor? You know, why don't they go get this guy, that guy? And I understand it, but not with this collective bargaining agreement. There's just they don't have the opportunity to do some of the things that others don't. And what does it tell you that they have the number one prospect in all of baseball? By the way, after a year ago, calling up the other number one prospect in all of baseball, Jackson Chourio, right? Now they have Jesus Made, I think is his name. He's the number one prospect in baseball again. They're going to call him up. He's going to be good too.
Listen, I think out of sight, out of mind sometimes, right, Craig? We forget. I don't know if folks remember how good Clay Holmes looked early on in the season for the Mets. He had made some adjustment to his mechanics. He was adding some different pitch. And then he ends up, you know, getting one off the leg there against the Yankees, I think it was. You know, he's been rehabbing, and all indications are, you know, this guy's a frontline starter. It might be the trade of the deadline if he can be that go-to guy for the Cubs here. I think it's going to be interesting because I really did like what I was seeing from him, and then all of a sudden he got hurt, and then that was the end of that.
Yeah, and look, you got to understand that this time of the year, that's part of it too. Injuries, that's the other thing. You know, I would tell you this, Joe. This is what's going to happen because it happens every year in baseball. So if you want another little prediction, some I get right, some I get wrong, not right on everything. There's going to be a team amongst the ones that we've talked about. Let's use Baltimore, Texas, Seattle. Who's the other team in the West that's fighting? Who am I missing? Seattle, Texas, and who's the third team that's fighting out
Houston?
West? Houston. There's going to be a team that's going to now lose a lot, and what we're going to say is, well, you know, the team is probably sitting in that clubhouse very disappointed that they didn't get anyone, and the morale is bad, and blah, blah, and it's just and I'm telling you, it's just the reality of the game. That things go up and they go down. Now, is it possible that you bring in a player and that player infuses you? Maybe those two pitchers infuse San Diego. Maybe the Cubs feel a lot better about the guys they got. Yes, but I got news for you. Those teams were going to lose anyway if they're going to lose now. It has nothing to do with adding or subtracting players. Teams win and lose over the course of the season, and in September. There's going to be some team that's going to get super hot and that's going to roll all the way to the ALCS or the NLCS that we didn't see coming. They may not win the World Series because they don't have the money of the Dodgers or the Yankees. We get that, okay? But there's going to be some surprise team. It's sports. It happens every year. Someone in that Final Four is going to be somebody that we're not thinking about right now.
Yeah, I'm looking very far. I think the Central in the National League is extremely interesting. I am looking forward to this battle between the Cubs and the Brewers down the stretch. I think the Padres just made it very interesting. But I'll tell you this. You know, Matthew Boyd here at the front of that rotation for the Cubs. He's on the mound tonight taking on a struggling Dodgers team. Robleski, who's got a bit of a home run issue, which we knew was coming, and boy, did it come in a big, big way. His last start, again, they're barely a 500 team since July 1st. I get everyone's all happy at Scooble, but this is a fascinating series to me. Now going on the road, taking on the Cubs here tonight.
Yeah, and we haven't even an hour and a half in. We haven't even looked at any of the games. Yeah,
I think
Dodgers
this
have not.
is interesting.
Yeah, Dodgers have not played great, but yeah, like this is a potential playoff series. We could see this happening, and Cubs are going to be entering feeling pretty good about their day today, and Dodgers are probably saying to themselves, "Man, like what happened to us in Boston this weekend?" So maybe they get right. Can you show those odds to me again? I want to see those odds one more time in that game. So the Dodgers are only minus 120 tonight, Joe.
Yeah.
Like when's the last time that has happened? Dodgers only like a slight favorite in a game?
Because they haven't hit lefties, and Boyd's actually been a pretty good one here since coming off the IL. It's not a great match. And now if I'm the Dodgers, I need to get out of Ches Ravine because it was getting a little stale. They were having it has not been a great stretch for them at all. But if I'm the Cubs, who had their hands full with the Yankees of all teams here, yeah, I want to come out swinging here tonight because you're not having to go up against Ohtani. You're not having to go against Yamato. This is a winnable game here for the Cubs. And you want to talk about a series that we're going to see come September, October. San Diego's taking on Arizona in Arizona. The two teams that you and I said, boy, oh boy, don't sleep on them wrapping up a couple of wild card spots. Brandon Pfaadt versus Michael King. It's a pick'em price here tonight, which I find fascinating.
Yeah, and both teams going to be talked about a lot. San Diego will be the more talked about team, but Arizona, I think, to me, still on paper is the better team. But now you wonder, did San Diego just put themselves a little bit above Arizona with those two pitching moves? How do you judge these two teams on paper in terms of offense, Joe? I kind of look at it and I say to myself, would I want Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, Nootbaar, Arenado, or on the flip side, do I like having Sheets, who's great against righties, Jackson Merrill, Tatis, Machado? I think I may now lean towards San Diego a little bit. If you add that starting pitching and you add the back end of that bullpen, what a battle these two teams are going to have. And nothing will get decided this week. You know that. I mean, one team's going to win 2 out of 3. It's just the way it's going to go. But what a fight to the finish for these two teams. And you're not going to go through the Dodgers, I don't think. Either of these teams going to catch the Dodgers. But it's going to be fun. That division now all of a sudden has become a lot more interesting.
I think it's a great litmus test for all 4 of those teams at this point here. So we got more as Game Time Decisions continues here on the grid. right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Raineri alongside Craig Mish as we're trying to put it all together here. Oof, what a trade deadline it has. It has been here. A lot to digest. A lot of teams going to look a little bit differently. Some new faces certainly here. One game underway, by the way, tonight. Philadelphia at home. Aaron Nola on the mound for the Phillies. Alvarez, the young lefty for Washington. Now, Washington did make some change, made some moves here. We know that Garcia Jr. now with the Yankees. But if I'm Washington, I don't think I'm losing momentum. I mean, they've still been one of the better hitting teams in Major League Baseball, especially on the road. I'm not exactly 100% convinced that Aaron Nola has figured anything out. I wouldn't look at the Washington Nationals as a fade team moving forward, even though they just traded away Foster Griffin and one of their better hitters here. They got a lot of talent on this team, no?
I would be a little concerned on the wins and losses side. I would, Joe, for Washington. They can't be feeling really good right now. They just lost 4 games in a row to Atlanta. They just traded their third best hitter, best pitcher, on a staff that really didn't have a lot of pitching. I would not be surprised to see Washington now be one of the worst teams in the National League the rest of the season. Ooh. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to win some games 11-8, okay? Because that's going to happen too. But I think they just took a major step back, maybe one of the biggest steps back in the last week. And by the way, the right move for them.
Yes.
Teams like St. Louis, Washington, Toronto, not Texas, Detroit, that were unclear a week ago are now crystal clear. Those teams are playing for next year. So there's not going to be a sense of tanking, I think, with these teams, Joe. But Washington did not expect to be anywhere near this wild card chase like they are now. Maybe you are right. Maybe their offense is just that dynamic that it's going to keep them in a lot of games and maybe help them win a lot of games. I don't think so. I think Washington now is going to take a pretty significant step back. Their pitching wasn't really good to begin with, and then they could count on Griffin once every 5 days. They can't count on him anymore. And Garcia was a help to their offense, but they kept the core intact with Abrams and Wood. They needed to do that. So I think the first time after doing the show for an hour and 44 minutes, our first disagreement here. I think Washington's in trouble now. I think it's a step back is coming for them.
Well, they still have that tremendous bullpen. No, I'm only kidding. They still have Kay Cavalli, and I like this kid Alvarez as well. Yeah, he's good as well. Not all is lost there for Washington. But it also should mention, we knew the number one priority. Yankees told you, everyone told you, they need a catcher. Well, the big name catcher that was on the market went to Boston, and the Yankees still don't have and have not addressed the catching position. Or did they, is my question to you, Craig, because let's face it, Garcia Jr. now is playing first base.
Right.
So does that mean Ben Rice spends more time behind the plate? Is that their answer to give them some catching depth here?
I haven't seen anywhere that's been reported, so I'm not sure, Joe. I just think that between Garcia, Rice, yeah, I don't know. I would assume that it won't be Alex Sanchez. Yeah, Goldschmidt's there right. too. Yes, you may be right. Maybe you're right. I mean, how many games has Rice caught this season though? How many games has he been behind the plate? He did a bunch early
on, didn't he? I mean, he was catching a bunch, and then at the beginning of the season, and then they had to kind of shift him into the first base, and then, the minute they lost Stanton and Judge, they lost any sense of a DH now, so if he's platooning at first anyway, it's an option for the Yankees, that's for sure.
Yeah, I guess, but
they didn't get anybody else.
No, they really didn't. It was a position that we thought they would attack. Their starting pitching is just so good that that's going to ride them into the postseason. And maybe it gives them a better shot in the postseason, even without the hitting. But, something just tells me that they're going to run into some team that's going to be able to score some runs at the end of the season. And in the postseason, the Yankees are going to get knocked out as usual. I think Tampa Bay is just a superior club to them. And And look, Cleveland is not better than the Yankees, but now all of a sudden, Cleveland throws Foster Griffin at you in a 7-game series, and now he's pitching 3 times, and he's not a superstar pitcher, but he's giving you quality starts. Their bullpen is good. Kate Smith in the back 9 is great. Yankees fans are going to be upset at the end of the year, Joe. Maybe not now, maybe not early October, but I think they're going to be upset at the end of the season, and some of it is really not their fault. But I just hope for Yankees fans next year that they are not going to have to count on a healthy Judge, a fully healthy Judge, a fully healthy Stanton. I mean, it's just not realistic. These guys have been hurt like over and over. I mean, Judge just put together 2 or 3 magnificent years. He's going to be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. But big dudes get hurt. And Stanton's played, I think you brought it up, half the games that he's played since he joined the Yankees. Half? 50%?
Half.
I mean, think about that.
Yep. And that's why I think this Rushman trade is going to be very interesting for Boston because A, he's going to be a free agent in another year, but B, guys that play hurt, get hurt. I mean, he shouldn't be a catcher for the rest of it as far as I'm concerned, right? I mean, Greg, if I'm him, I'm looking to play him someplace else because catching is not longevity. There's nothing long about. He's already a train wreck and a hospital, a MASH unit. You can't keep throwing him out behind the plate here. At some point, you got to figure out a different position from him.
Agreed.
I hope it works, but I don't know. I think it's nice name, but I don't know that that's going to work for Boston.
So if Tampa Bay plays New York in a 7-game series in the American League Championship Series, would you take the Yankees, Joe? I know your heart would.
If they're home. If
the Yankees have the home field, okay, in the 7-game series.
If the Yankees have the home field, at Tampa Bay, I would not. I would not look to fade Tampa at home, but on the road.
Right.
If 4 of the games,
I think that's fair.
Especially,
I think that's fair.
Especially at the price that you might will likely get them to. I think the one big equalizer is going to be, Craig, the Yankees have one card up their sleeve. They can make the announcement that Aaron Judge is on his way back. He'll be in the lineup tomorrow, and that will change all the hatred into
I don't see that coming.
Joy. I don't see that coming. Why wouldn't you have at least dangled that carrot in front of everyone? But they haven't. Ugh, it's awful. All right, we got updates. Washington on the board. Shocker. Game time decisions continues. All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. And we've got a 1-0 Nats lead over Philadelphia. It was funny, Craig. We were just talking like the Phillies had a need for some, Aaron Nola is not what Aaron Nola used to be. It would have been nice to see if you could have gotten a couple of arms here, something like a Lugo or a Waka, something along those lines. But they did get a second baseman that now requires, 2 or 3 other guys to play a totally different position
Luis
now.
Arraez, yeah, moving guys around. I'll tell you, Joe, I would not have guessed that. I would not. Luis Arraez, when he played, when Luis Arraez played for Miami in 2023, he had an MVP caliber season. It was the best season that he had ever had. I would say he was a major reason why they got to the postseason that year. He was a fan favorite and all of that. But the truth is that he's a very hard guy to measure because defensively he was becoming inept at the position. And how do you get a guy that just hits .310 and does nothing else? So Miami traded him to San Diego. And Joe, his hitting was the same, but his defense really deteriorated. They started playing him at first base or even not at all. And to his credit, I don't know what got into him this offseason, Joe, but he said, I'm not signing with anybody unless I'm a second baseman. He signed with the Giants. And I can tell you that the work that he put in with, who you know very, very well, with Ron Washington, who is the best defensive guru there's ever been in the history of baseball. And then Perry Hill was good too. But Ron Washington, he shows up at those games in the morning and you're out there working on that field. He is incredible. And he got Luis Arraez to be an average second baseman again. Like, not bad. Like, he was not good, Joe. But he got him to be an average second baseman to the point where he has rebuilt defensive value. And so the Phillies are going to give him that chance again. But let's also keep it real, Joe. If it doesn't go well, they have some options. They can play him at first. They can put Harper at DH. They can move Schwarber back into the outfield a little bit. So let's look and see how this thing goes, and not like put it in pen. Maybe it's in pencil, and see how the next month or so goes with Arraez playing the position. But I gotta say, to Luis's credit, and I've known him very well now through the years, he really worked on his defense. He got himself better. He didn't get a great contract with San Francisco, Joe. I have a feeling he's not going to get a great contract again this offseason. Probably another 1-year deal. The game just doesn't value Rod Carew and Wade Boggs like they used to, and Tony Gwynn. That's who he is. It's not for it's for the 80s and the 90s. It is not for this day and age of baseball. But I would guess he'll help the Phillies in a way that helps them get to the postseason. Now, he's not going to hit a 3-run home run, I don't think, Joe, in the postseason to win a game for you. But he's going to get on in front of those other guys. It's still up to Schwarber. It's still up to Harper. It's still up to Bohm and Stott and Marsh to drive him in.
Yeah, and let's face it. I mean, they needed some consistency offensively. If nothing else, he is going to provide them that. Listen, it's great to have Schwarber leading off with a solo home run. But can we get somebody like in front of Schwarber that can actually get on base? That would be fantastic, and that's exactly what he's going to do. By the way, I think the first 3 guys have now struck out for the Phillies: Turner, Schwarber, and Harper. So, way to go. 1-0 early in that one. Yankees and the Cardinals coming up here, which I think is going to be interesting. Are you shocked the Royals just didn't get rid of any of the expiring contracts here, Craig? Because I thought Lugo and Waka for sure would have eaten up innings on some other teams.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, look, I don't know what's going on with the Royals, so I can't speak to their situation, but I would be, if I'll put it this way, if I was in the front office of the Royals, Joe, I'd be a little bit worried if I was not able to trade players that needed to be traded. Now, I don't know this to be true at all, but if I was in that seat, it feels to me, I could be completely wrong, as a GM, like, I'm going to call my owner and say, this is what I want to do. Did he not have permission to do that? And say, why don't you just keep everybody you have and we'll worry about that in the offseason? That's a little bit of what it tells me. that maybe why the Royals didn't do that, because they're thinking maybe somebody else is going to make those decisions. I'm not rooting for that. I'm just saying that it's been a really disappointing season in Kansas City.
It's a very good point there. Yeah, it has not been great, and I thought for sure they would have had some options and that they could have hit the reset button there, but did not happen. In the meantime, though, plenty more baseball games coming up here. In-game live game day is straight ahead here. Gabe Morency and Kevin Walsh, they'll cover all the night's action. Just 8 games on the slate. Greg and I are going to try to figure out exactly who's wearing what uniform now. We'll be back again tomorrow for another edition of Game Time Decisions. Enjoy the games, guys. We'll see you again soon here on the grid.